Welcome everyone to this, our CACOR Live's 247th presentation. This is a wonderful opportunity for all of us to get a chance to learn a little bit more about artificial intelligence. Today, our speaker is Dr. Peter MacKinnon. He is a scientist, business manager, entrepreneur. He has had so many things go on in his career. It's absolutely wonderful to have him being able to speak to us today about artificial intelligence and being part of the group that are trying to look at how we can deal with artificial intelligence into the future. So Peter, thank you very much for giving us this presentation, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say and a lot of the questions that'll be coming afterwards. Thank you. Over to you, Peter.
Well, thank you, Jean, for that very flattering introduction. And yes, it has been an interesting career, and it's still continuing, and this is the latest element in it. This is a project that took about 3 months to write the proposal. I was one of the principal authors. There's two of us who wrote the main proposal, and it took 9 months to get a decision. So it was like having a baby. And then we are just starting to ramp this initiative up this early calendar year. So I'll speak a bit about this U Ottawa project towards the end of this presentation. But I will start by actually introducing the concepts of what are connected and autonomous vehicles and some of the issues around them. And we'll explore a bit about AI around this, and I hope that we'll have a lot more discussion on that in the after discussion part, after the presentation. So with that, I will proceed with the next slide. Here is what I'd like to talk about. And I'm going to deal with a number of definitions, simply so we're all on the same page. And as some of you have heard me speak before, I typically have somewhat busy slides in the sense that there's lots of text, but I highlight in color the key points I want to make in general, and the other material is there as edification for post-reading, if you like, or post-listening. So connected vehicles, basically these are equipped with the ability to communicate with each other and their surrounding environment. That's the basic notion of a connected vehicle. So, I mean, in a sense, if you're talking on a mobile phone in your car, you are somewhat of a connected vehicle, but not in the same sense as in navigating and so forth, unless, of course, you're using a GPS system that is, connected your car to a satellite system that's telling you how to go down the road. But that's a very simple type of vehicle in the sense that it still has humans involved in all the decision making about the operation of the vehicle. And what we're striving to achieve in the let's call it near to medium future is autonomous vehicle operations, which would be self-driving. That is, there's no human driver. The former driver might be in the car, but possibly playing bridge or reading a book or scanning the internet. So autonomous vehicles are capable of sensing their own environments, and they can operate without human intervention. And this project I mentioned, this site CAV, and I'll unpack that in a little while later, but that's the acronym, is really about the communications protocols and the related cybersecurity to provide the capabilities for autonomous and connected vehicles. So that's the essence. We're dealing with communications protocols, and as you can appreciate, this is about real time in most cases. So we're dealing with things that are really have to be very accurately controlled time-wise, because you're passing information that is real time about road conditions, for example, and there shouldn't be delays in the transmission of that data. So these are just definitions. Here are some common terms that are used in the communications context related to vehicles. So V to V is obviously vehicle to vehicle. V to I, vehicle to infrastructure, where the infrastructure could be the roadbed, a passing service station, charging station, for example. And then vehicle to network is where you're actually dealing with a variety of things relying on data that you're getting from outside of your roadbed. And then I could say that there are 5 levels of autonomy that have been defined by the SAE International. SAE is formerly the Society of engineers, I think it's auto engineers. Anyway, it's now just a name called SAE. It's sort of like IBM changed its name to just its letters. But the key thing here is that there are these 5 levels. Zero, obviously, is the kind of car that we have, most of us would have. It's a basic internal combustion engine automobile with a steering wheel and so forth. Then there's driver assisted, which is level 1. And this is where we have things like adaptive cruise control. And as you know, some of you probably have that in your vehicles if you're not even driving an electric vehicle. Then there's a partial automation where we have like things like the Tesla autopilot, which you may have heard about. There's humans are involved in piloting, but it's hands-on without having to be completely 100% time devoted to steering the car. And then there's another level up called conditional automation. You can read these things. And the aspiration is to, of course, reach full automation, which is level 5. There's no such vehicle at that level today. We are now talking about operating vehicles at level 4. They operate in Waymo operates a taxi service in Phoenix, Arizona. And we'll look at a few examples of these in a few minutes. But the concept vehicles is only where we're at the moment in terms of level 5. And you can think of the Site CAV project as aspiring to achieve the technology for level 5. And I'll explain the different components of that in a few minutes. So in terms of the way to look at this project, this technology project, we're looking at things on what is known as the technology readiness levels. This is a standardized process that's been basically shared between Canada and the United States in both military as well as non-defense procurement. And you can see this scaling is basically 1 or 0 is the idea. And there's sort of 9 steps here. And the final 9 would be you have something that's finalized, it's integrated, it's now a product and packaged and has related services, etc., ready to go to market. We are going to be talking about, we're in between on some of these, and I'll explain that in a little bit until we identify where we're working on the technology. But this is called the technology readiness levels, TRL system is called. Now, why do we need connected and autonomous vehicles? A CAV for CAVs or CAV for short. Well, they're not just a novelty. I mean, you can think of a connected vehicle as potentially a step on the way to an autonomous vehicle. But in fact, a connected vehicle has significant value already, even in its ability to assist in road safety. Because most accidents, in fact, are human error. By a vast majority of auto accidents, whether it's in trucks or cars or being hit by a train or whatever, it's all because of human error, almost all human error. You can see as well that the traffic efficiency and congestion reduction can be significant with autonomous vehicles and connected vehicles because they're communicating with each other. Therefore, they will know a bit about what traffic conditions are like ahead of you, so to speak, and can backcast it to the traffic coming down the highway. Or these various ways of communicating will clearly add great value to and safety improvement to operating vehicles, as well as, of course, the reduction in congestion. That'll be a big step, like the way of reducing congestion at an intersection. And I would suggest that we'll have a variety of very sophisticated, metaphorically speaking, software tools that will help us in the congestion reduction process. And most of these will be in real time and optimized around using AI tools. Why do we need these CAVs? Again, accessibility. They can provide mobility, of course, to the elderly or the disabled and those who can't drive. I mean, just think about it. We have autonomous vehicles. And you're a typical family of four or six or whatever, and you may only need one vehicle as all adults driving because you can share your vehicle. It drops one off at some place and then goes on to the next and picks you up at the next place. And there's a whole impact on parking spaces. That's a whole business that emerged because of the car. Parking garages in the sense of big time downtown garages won't necessarily be needed in the future if the cars can be self-directed and go back home or whatever. So there's a lot of implications, and you can think about the implications to insurance as well. So these are things that are coming with the economic productivity as well that come with this, as well as, of course, because the accident reduction is significant, healthcare costs in terms of caring for the injured, it will be significantly reduced. At least that's certainly the anticipation. And clearly, autonomous vehicles will have a significant role to play in the delivery of freight and in the efficiency of that process. And just-in-time inventories will likely be even better coordinated than they have been in the past, certainly since the pandemic. Are connected vehicles just a transition? Well, I would suggest that they're not exactly a transition because they do add some value. They're not just a stepping stone, and I was just outlining that here a few moments ago. But full autonomy without connectivity currently it's very limited use. There's only experimental activities going on in that regard. So we'll see many more use cases coming along in the next few years. The principal oops, I just want to get rid of something here on my screen. The principal differences between connected autonomous vehicles is summarized in this table. And I just point out a few of the items. You can see that the role is related to basically enhancing safety and efficiency in the transport of things on a roadbed. And that, of course, improves conditions for human health if you're not in accidents. The time frame of connected vehicles is pretty widely deployed. If you think about cruise control, it's been around for some years. But autonomous vehicles, we're just starting to see them emerge. And we're at levels 2 and 3 in some cases. 4 is just starting to appear in isolated cities. It tends to be approved at the city level in North America, at least, and in some other places such as Europe. The decisions to have autonomous or semi-autonomous vehicles are being made at the local level. And the transition time, not just a stepping stone, it's valued on its own, as I was saying, but it may depend on, in the future of the CB technology has to be very robust. And that's the point I was making about the timing and accuracy and reliability of data. And autonomy is coming, and these are busy. There's 3 or 4 slides here. I just point this out as an example of various places around the world where we're seeing various states of autonomous vehicles being introduced. You might even notice here in March 2019, a company called Robo Race had a car that actually a robotically controlled car that reached 82.42 kilometers per hour. That's pretty fast. And that was an autonomous vehicle. Other examples are here. I've got these organized sort of proceeding from about the late 2017s into the up until, in fact, this year. You can see some here, Neural, I was approved for level 4 in Palo Alto about 2 years ago. And here we are in this sort of time of year, and we've got WeRide, which has recently got driver's certification, and it's for testing in France. And in March, WeRide also partnered with Renault to create driverless minibuses in Barcelona, Spain. And furthermore, you have some more here. So there's clearly a lot of these things going on, and you can notice basically the samples here are the US, China, and Europe, and those are the principal areas of greatest activity. GAC Ion and Didi, these are 2 very large Chinese manufacturers of autonomous vehicles. And as you may be aware, China is actually the largest supplier of electric vehicles currently. the largest individual company supplying electric vehicles is Tesla. But on the basis of the market, it's the Chinese are dominating. Also, China is exploring new ways of collaborating across its sort of provincial boundaries, if you like, its provinces. And Guangdong or Guangzhou is a major city and has a district that is now linked up geographically with both Hong Kong and Macau, which have been returned to China in recent years. Macau being a Portuguese colony for many centuries, about five, and of course, Hong Kong under British control until 1997. So there are a number of technical challenges in the business of uh, building autonomous vehicles, and these are not particularly in any order, but they're all important. Without any one of these, you couldn't have an operating autonomous vehicle. So there's the perception and sensing. This must be very accurate, and it deals with in real time with its surroundings of the vehicle. And there are a variety of course, key issues. And some of this activity involves what is known as sensor fusion of various types of sensors. Can measure temperature and speed and all kinds of other things. These it can be fused together, the data, into data sets of various sorts. And this is a process that is evolving in how to make these applications for autonomous vehicles. And there's localization and mapping. Again, it has a lot to do with knowing where you are and how you're going to get from where you are to where you want to get to. And the earlier uh, cars were primarily using digital maps, but now things can be transmitted over radio frequency instead of having the map built into a computer system, like you would say, do a OC transpo map to map a route here in Ottawa to get from one destination to another on the public transit system. It's the same sort of mapping tool that you would have in your real-time car. There's other things, prediction and human behavior. This is, of course, one of the most complicated activities to understand because human behavior is so often unpredictable, and therefore you have to anticipate, in effect, millions of scenarios to be accurate in terms of the sense of accuracy. And there's planning and decision making. So you're not only, of course, in real time, but you're also thinking ahead, so to speak. So you're planning a route, or the vehicle is planning a route for you because you get an origin and a destination, and it's working out based on roadbed conditions, which is the best route. Then there's real-time computing and systems latency. Systems latency, of course, is the time it takes for a transaction to take place. Excuse me. And the shorter the time, the better in terms of working real time with a lot of data. And there's other challenges. There's the robustness in adverse conditions. Roadbeds can be wet, they can be icy, black ice, they can be wind, night and day, etc. All those conditions. And there's, of course, the whole security in the sense of the cybersecurity and the resilience of the system is essential because all the autonomous vehicles will be dependent on an infrastructure that is in real time and operating. So if that should go down, then you basically are leaving vehicles somewhat stranded from their ability to be connected. And there's a variety of other things. I won't go into all these in detail. You can see these for your own edification. You can see some of these acronyms, V to X and so on are appearing in some places here, which are these terms that I introduced at the beginning. Here's the role of AI in a summary form in respect to autonomous vehicles. Specifically, I'm talking about autonomous vehicles here. So here are the key areas: perception, localization, prediction, decision-making, control of operating of the vehicle itself, simulation and training, and safety monitoring. So the AI's role is, as you can see, identified here in this table. And I've identified some of the types of techniques, and most of these are in acronym form. So probably I should provide a list of acronyms. Maybe I can do that in as a post event. I'll make an acronym list at the back of this deck. So these are different types of these are the AI techniques are specifically engineering type techniques to deal with how to map out data structures and pose algorithms to develop the type of app you're looking for. And what are the challenges in getting autonomous vehicles to level 5? Because that, of course, is the ultimate aspiration. Well, there's the perception is unstructured or unpredictable environments is a problem. And this is like the idea of the chaotic, person running out in the roadbed, or a kid chasing a ball across the street. So there's various types of technical considerations. I mean, there's things like the glare on cameras. LIDAR is a type of laser technique for reflecting laser off of objects, and that gets you a distance, a very accurate distance, and it can be done in very quick time, as in basically real time. However, it doesn't work as well in fog and snow, and therefore like clouds. So that's an issue. Although radar can go through those things, but not the LIDAR. It's a different part of the spectrum. Then there's handling adverse weather conditions. As you all know, you've driven, I'm sure, in such times, and as a driver, you sometimes feel quite concerned about the status of the roadbed. So when it's going to be now a driverless vehicle, you're not supposed to be concerned about the status of the roadbed if it's been properly engineered. Dependencies in high definition maps problem. Some of these maps don't scale very easily, even though they're digital. So they have issues associated with scaling. There's the decision making and ethics in complex social scenarios. Ethics is, of course, a social phenomenon. It's a cultural phenomenon. It varies around the world, as you're probably well aware. Ethics in some aspects of the Eastern thinking is different than in Western thinking. And I point out here as an example, and you may have heard me speak of this as one before, but it certainly has to do with these type of autonomous vehicles. Think about an adult and a child are on a roadbed, and this autonomous vehicle is coming along, and it's by scenario, it's going to hit one of the two of them. But which one does it hit? Is it because it should know which one to hit if it has any intelligence in it? And of course, assuming it, as I said, it's going to hit somebody. This is just the scenario. East, it would hit the child, whereas in the West, it would hit the adult. And that's because in the East, they see the adult as a wisdom, and the child is an empty vessel. And we see it the other way around in the West. And so we have a different value on saving life when it's in a critical situation. How AI is going to deal with this issue of ethics and integrity is yet to be resolved. We have a lot of discussion about ethics and AI, but very limited about integrity. And we can talk more about that in the discussion. And again, this real-time sensor fusion, these are problems that are part of the challenge. And the cybersecurity is, of course, a huge problem. If there's a desire by nefarious actors to interfere with an autonomous controlling network, or in fact, if there's a bug by design or by accident in some of the applications that might be used to control any of the systems or subsystems in such a complex environment as an autonomous operating roadbed. And there are other issues, standards or lack of standards. That, of course, is coming along. The International Standards Organization is working on some. We've got this SAE group that has developed some standards. The IEEE is working on some standards as well. So there's a variety underway, but you can see, for example, is this bullet here. A level 5 car needs to work in Mumbai traffic, Swedish snow, and rural Brazil without custom rule sets. So I mean that's a wide spectrum of different traffic conditions, and the car has to know where it is in that regard. Regulatory and legal ambiguities are still around. We still don't have a lot of rules and about connected and even autonomous vehicles. And there's clearly a lot of liability issues that haven't been worked out, insurance issues that haven't been worked out. So there's a big change coming in the support industries around around the transportation sector in general. So here's a summary of the principal challenges to get to level 5, why it's hard. And you can see perception in a chaotic environment. AVs can't improvise like humans can. So we have to figure out a way so that it can see that it's a cat. Or a good example is it can see that it's a human dressed in a Tyrannosaurus costume standing on the road. Whereas if it wasn't trained, AI system wasn't trained to see that, it would probably not know what it was and therefore might knock it over or not otherwise do something different. Anyway, chaos is a serious issue, and perception is the problem in trying to resolve these things with the vision systems for cars, vision and sensing systems. Weather robustness, as you well appreciate, is a clear issue. It has always been. Map independence is desirable, but it's complex, and many maps, as it says, are brittle and affect not scaling and different standards of projection as well, even. So all kinds of differences are possible. And the cybersecurity, any vulnerability is, in effect, is a critical risk. And legal readiness, the liability and certification is clearly are unclear still at this point in time. Next is the Site CAB project. So let me just shift gears now from general introduction to what the technology of this the autonomous vehicle area is all about, and turn now to the Site CAB project. SITE is the stands for Secure, Intelligent, and Trustworthy Ecosystem of Connected and Autonomous Vehicles. So that's what SITE CAB is. So it's a long-worded expression. So we make a simple acronym now. So it's an interdisciplinary and a collaborative project. You'll see in a few moments who's involved. We're looking at two basic research questions. The development of efficient and reliable communication protocols integrated with security by design solutions, along with intelligent, user-friendly, and legal awareness of the environment in which it's operating. For example, here is the full name of the project as identified at the top here. The purpose is a 3-year project. The team is headquartered at U Ottawa in the Faculty of Engineering, although the Faculty of Law and the Faculty of Mathematics are also involved. As it potentially, we're also looking at a partner in the business school. So there's several different faculty from different parts of the university in this multi-team effort and interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary project. And as the technology readiness levels, I'll look at this a little more, I'll point it out in a moment. We're at level 3 now, which has been because there's been other research that's been done in the past. And level 3 is where we got a bunch of pieces that are sitting on the tabletop. And each one works independently, but we haven't integrated them. So the next step is all this integration and building it into subsystems and systems. And that's moving from TRL 3 to our objective by the end of the 4th year at TRL 7. And in that regard, by the time we're at TRL 7, industry starts to take a serious interest because they can see how these various new technologies, could fit into existing products they already have or planned products that they're working on. So we have 10 business partners involved, as well as Western University and the University of Toronto as academic centers. So here's that technology readiness level, the same image as before, but shrunk. And here is level 3 and level 7. So this is what we're trying to accomplish in the next 4 years. Wind harvest is simply the source. You can't probably see it. If you copy it, there's I see the color has changed. There is a web link. I guess it's here. where it went way back where this diagram first appeared. So that's what I was saying here is our state of that project at the moment. So here are the main themes, cybersecurity and cyber safety, ultra fast and agile communications. Agile meaning as well that it's flexible in a variety of ways, reconfigurable. And ultra fast meaning, of course, it's working at microseconds or picoseconds or something of that sort. Human factors and trust. This is both a technology issue and a social science issue. So that's one of the reasons we have lawyers and social science people involved. And there's, of course, the whole legal social implications, and that's a broad topic in its own right as well. So this is the framework of the project. And here are the professors. There's 10 in total. As you can see, most of them are here at the University of Ottawa, and three others. And each of these, of course, has a number of students. We plan to have 55 graduate students and postdocs on this project. So each of these professors will be supervising master's and PhD students and have postdocs as part of their team. And there's management committees, strategic assessment committee, and a management committee. We've structured these things to deal with a variety of steps through the process of managing the funding from the funding sources to which are a mix of public and private money from the Ontario Research Fund, the participating universities, and the business partners. And the business partners are in two types of contribution: in kind and or financial, or both. And I guess that's the or. And the business partners also participate in some of the activities, such as there are three business partners who sit on that management committee. Here are our business partners currently. Trusted Mobi is in California, and Wedge Networks is in Calgary. And the other organizations, although Post Canada Canada Post is around the country, we're dealing with headquarters, so that's here in Ottawa. So these are Ottawa area firms that we're working with as well. And we have intellectual property, of course, strategy for this initiative, and first rights of refusal basically go to the partners, and then it can be. And there's different formats and how things are handled by different universities. This explains it. It's nitty gritty, so I don't need to go into detail. Intellectual property strategy components here, just the last bits. And then we have a commercialization plan where we work with each of the partners to help them figure out the ways to commercialize and work with the bits and pieces, as well as perhaps even hiring some of the students to produce some of the research and their theses. So that's another major benefit that comes from having business partners with these types of multi-year research projects. And then we also run webinars and seminars. And in fact, there's one this coming week, as well as an annual workshop and a hackathon. So we're having a workshop and a hackathon next week in our lab facility in the west end of Ottawa. The lab moved from the campus of the university in the engineering complex at the south end of campus to Canada just before the pandemic. And just last few months, we physically moved our location in Canada from one building to a different building. So the lab has just been reconfigured over the past few weeks after a move this winter. And we run extensive youth outreach. We involve doing events with school boards, with the local colleges, both sides of the river, and with museums. There's a variety of activities that we've done in the past and will repeat in this project, where we work with students from outside of the project itself. So in summary, connected and autonomous vehicles are shaping the future of vehicular traffic with the promise of clearly enhancing safety, reducing air pollution, lowering insurance rates, enhancing utilization of time without having to drive, and many other benefits. And in fact, think about the automobile when it was first introduced as a way to get from A to B. and then all the subsidiary things that came along with it, such as fast food restaurants, motels, drive-in theaters. I mean, we don't know what's going to be coming yet with these autonomous vehicles. I'm sure it'll be as mind-boggling as what we've seen in looking back in retrospect as what happened with the proliferation of the automobile and the roadbed that they came to use. Artificial intelligence AI is a key component of the cab type technology. In fact, you couldn't have these types of cars without AI. And the level 5 autonomy is still an aspiration, and it's a goal that is being pursued by a variety of research groups, both in universities as well as in government labs and in the private sector in many parts of the world. And no company has cracked that code yet. And I would suggest that it's probably at least 10 years out before we'll have that full flexible autonomous vehicle. And the SiteCab project's ultimate aim is to achieve level 5 autonomy. So that's what I have to say for this afternoon, and I'm open to any questions and comments and general discussion. Thank you very much. My
Thank
coordinates
you.
are here, and they'll be available on the slide deck.
Thank you very much, Peter. That was very interesting. And as moderator, I get the chance to ask the first question. There are many of them coming up online right at this point, but what I'd like to know is, this all sounds absolutely fabulous in terms of safety and all of the things that you were talking about. But I worry about the fact that if these are individuals owning vehicles, and individuals will be responsible for making sure and maintaining those vehicles so that they are safe to operate on the road, what are the things that you're looking at? I look at all the various rattle traps that I see on the road versus the people who are maintaining their vehicles properly and so on. I do see a need for something like this, or a bit availability for using this in things like fleet vehicles or in the military where there's somebody responsible. But I worry about not having somebody higher up making it the responsibility of people to make sure they're maintained and safe.
Well, that's a good question, and it's the proverbial question, I suppose, in terms of any tool we wish to use. It should be safe to use,
Right.
and therefore these vehicles should be safe to use. And how do we ultimately know that they're safe to use? Well, I think the biggest threats to me in the autonomous vehicle business are not so much the failure of the tool, the vehicle, but rather the fact that it can be hacked. It could be hacked in ways that are meant to be disruptive. And
Okay.
so, so people now follow their GPS so closely that they're almost willing to drive off a cliff because it says that's where they're supposed to go. Well, I mean, you've got to have some common sense too. It's like using a hand calculator. When you first had a hand calculator and you just pressed numbers, if you got a number that was 25 million and you were hoping to get 25,000, you'd say, oh, it must be 25 million because that's what the calculator said. It was the human who made the error. So, those are the things that are going to creep up on us in these, as we embed more technology, we have to start making it more autonomous from human error itself, which
Yes.
could be forgetfulness as well. I mean, we just forgot to turn the switch. Well,
Okay.
I didn't answer your question in a technical way, but I suspect it's a proverbial question that'll be ringing for a long time in the future.
Well, and I do see a few questions that are down the line that are similar to what I was thinking. So we can discuss that later if it still hasn't been answered, but thank you. I'd like to ask Art Hunter to please unmute and to put his video on. And I have Andrew Welsh on deck.
Okay. Peter, excellent. I quite enjoyed that. I do want to make one comment. I drive a Tesla Model 3. And of course, it has over-the-air updates that come in quite regularly. And one of the things that is updated is, of course, it's autonomous driving. So what was available 2 months ago is really modernized today. My last trip was, in fact, last
Oh,
week,
you're back.
and I discovered a whole bunch of new things. Of course, the what it does is it looks ahead. It says, what is the charge state? Where are the charging stations? And the navigation system lays it all out for me. And in the process as well, it sets up a navigation route which avoids congestion, which means that the congestion material is made available via some other route and
Yeah.
goes into the control system software that Tesla runs, and that provides that information to me. I also see it on the screen because congestion, they make red lines, where the roadway is normally a white line, and there's a continuing evolution, which I really admire. I think it's great. But my real question on this is, how far away from each other do these, for vehicle to vehicle communication? I appreciate it, it's sensor distance, and maybe it's something else as well. Um, but I see as it were, a little group of vehicles with some leaving the local area and other new ones arriving, and there's that sort of thing um, happening. And then and up and down the road, there's these little clusters all down the line. And do these clusters talk to each other? And do they talk to a headquarters? Because a bit like I said, Tesla seems to be doing somehow, and they're getting information from somewhere, because I'm sure they're not collecting it all. Could you tell me what's happening here? Is Google collecting this? Is somebody else?
Well, some of the several parts to your question, the data, the raw data about, say, the road closures in a local city, that's generally supplied by the city itself, right? Because they send out the road maintenance teams, or they contract a company to fix a piece of road. That's a known process. It's a physical process, and so that data is put into a data set, into a database, and that can be accessible real time.
Yeah,
And it also has to be maintained, because once the site has been repaired, they have to take down the stuff to say that the road's now open again. So,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure how all that is done in the back room, so to speak. I mean, whether there's you know, um, uh, people actually doing that physically, like they do in the markup of large language models. This is an unseen thing that people don't realize. There's thousands and thousands of young people in the Far East are paid pittance to mark up large language models. And the net result is what we get as answers to the things when we pose things. Post it, make a posting to one of those, and we get an answer. But it was often on the backs of people who got paid very little to put that data into those training sets.
Yeah, yeah.
Likely, in terms of the connectivity, well, G5, which I think has been oversold, in my view, to the public as the next generation of mobile phone technology. It's not so much for the mobile phone as a human user. G5 is for Internet of Things. So the Internet of Things is going to be the network that a lot of the mobile data communications is going to be based on. And the G5 networks are going to be very dense. So the shadow bands of a building will disappear. A building can make a shadow from a radio frequency to certain bands. So those things will basically disappear, because there'll be enough connectivity in urban areas. And then in the countryside, I mean, already the cell networks basically run the main transit ways, whether they're rail lines or highways, and airlines, of course, connected above. So I would say that it's going to be based on the existing cellular networks and the future of them as they get denser. And ultimately, we're going to have even better high-speed, long-distance communications without
Yeah.
as many repeaters. But
Yeah.
that's another infrastructure in the future.
Yeah, yeah, good answer. I do want to point out that vehicle to vehicle communications has been going on for, I don't know, 30 years.
Mm.
And this has been happening, of course, with our truckers, the 18-wheelers.
Yes, the 2 meter band
Uh,
in particular.
yeah, the CB bands. I used to really enjoy listening to them talk about a bear in the air and all their language was so colorful and 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 really quite entertaining as you're driving the highways and the and those heading east are telling the people who are heading west what's ahead of them
Yeah,
and talk about a rich network. And these people really addressed many of the problems which you have
yes,
laid out in your presentation because of the
exactly.
human to human.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
I kind of say to myself, that CB network is still alive and well. Yeah, I wonder
yeah,
if there's some way to tap into that, because voice to digital
yeah.
change is quite easy and it's done all the time. And if that could be harnessed in some way as well, because it's got the human element built into
Yeah.
it. And professionals, these guys, they're driving 30 years or 40 years of their career. I mean, they
Yeah.
know what the road is like. They know what's happening. Me, as an occasional user of their highways, I want to hear what they have to say.
Well, what they have is an enormous amount of tacit knowledge.
Yes.
I mean, the codified knowledge, the road signs, the speed limits, the
Yeah.
exits, etc.
Yeah.
They're all well known, but it's the tacit knowledge, like don't go around this corner at above,
Yeah.
75
Yeah. Yeah.
kilometers
Yeah.
per
Yeah.
hour if you're
Yeah. Yeah.
carrying a load of
Yeah.
such and
Yeah. Yeah.
such.
Yeah. 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 Anyway, I'm just suggesting that this might be a piece of getting into level 5 that carries some benefits with it, and if
Well, there's certainly a
anybody's
metaphor there.
actually
Yeah.
doing that. Anyway, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We have Andrew Welsh up now, and on deck we have Claude Boutnier. Sorry, Claude. Andrew, you go ahead.
Hi, Peter. Thanks
Yeah.
for the
Hi, Andrew.
presentation. I don't know anything about autonomous vehicles. I'm more of a big picture thinker. So the thing that occurs to me is there a danger that in developing autonomous vehicles, I put it in the chat, are we doing the dishwasher thing where we are, I mean, you talked about the mind-boggling changes that might be in the future on this. And I think, are we thinking boggling enough? In other words, if you were tasked as an engineering group to develop a machine that was able to pick up individual dishes, figure out where the food was, wash them off, be able to handle wine glasses, be able to handle saucers, be able to handle forks and special knives, as opposed to completely throwing out the old way of doing things and saying we're going to have a dishwasher which does it without a problem. Are we limiting our future by saying, oh yeah, we're going to base it on cars, which have the assumption that, yeah, we're likely going to need 4 passengers plus luggage. We have to be able to handle that. We have to be able to share roads with life and other things going on. We have to have unlimited variations. So yes, we can allow cars to drive up onto the sidewalk, which they are now being done as weapons. And we are now going to load in all of this stuff that can be run by cyber terrorists to make those weapons much more efficient, as opposed to saying, look, what are the problems we're really trying to solve? Getting people from A to B. How can we do that? Well, we have these shuttles that run on tracks that do airports all the time in a really efficient way. No AI necessity of identifying children there. And to sort of lump that thinking onto what Art was saying, about CB radios. If we reversed that thinking, if we were currently starting with autonomous vehicles that had all of this AI, that had some still challenges to solve, and somebody said, hey, what if we put a human behind the steering wheel? We could put this human there and they would recognize all of these dinosaurs and have tacit knowledge about the curves. Wouldn't that be way better, way easier, and consume far less energy to solve the problem? So how do you find these big pictures being raised in your environment, and how would you answer them?
Well, definitely. In fact, I would say the big picture issue is the vehicle itself. I'm of the view that business as usual, the notion of how we have our global economy be business as usual, is the acronym, is the expression, is unsustainable. So, on the big picture sense, all of this is unsustainable because of the resources that we're consuming and the environmental changes that we're causing. So that aside, now that's the big problem. Geopolitics is another big problem in terms of global stability. So those big problems put aside, we'll now deal with transportation. I think within the context of transportation, moving towards autonomy is one of the most, I would call it, intelligent ways, and I mean that in a truest sense, of trying to mass move people in safe and reliable conditions. Now, we have built the private bubble, which is the automobile. We used to have our private horse, but now we share our horse probably, and sometimes we share our automobile, at least with family. But I think the future of the automobile will be far less because we all have our own private automobile. It's like everyone having their own private lawnmower. I mean, they don't need them all. I mean, yes, it'd probably be convenient. Everyone wants a toaster, because you have to borrow your neighbor's toaster every morning. But I think that we're going to see these kinds of subtle and not so subtle changes coming at us, and we'll say, "Well, why didn't we think of that before?" But in the context of safety, and it will transform some industries, such as the auto repair, the small town garage. I mean, they're basically being put out of business already because of the cost of equipment necessary to even measure what's going on inside your car nowadays. It's not like we can do it like 30, 40 years ago when we had our own, tools at home. We could fix our own cars up to a certain degree. So that's all changing. And the vehicles themselves are the material context of them is getting simpler, right? There's far less moving parts. There's far less mass. I mean, the battery's a big issue as in terms of mass, but there's a lot of things happening that I think are going to converge in different ways, and only scenarios can tell us, and we may not even get the right scenario. I don't know whether I'm answering your question, but it seems to me that the big questions are that fundamentally the business as usual model is wrong, because I don't think we're sustainable. But that's an issue for the next century. We've got to deal with that problem now. I think energy efficiency will be improved with using using these type.
Okay, thanks. There's a lot of people in the queue. I'll let it move on.
But that's an yeah.
Thank you, Peter.
Energy.
Claude, you're up, and I will read into the record the question that David Harries had, because he had to leave. And on deck after
Okay.
David Harries' question is answered will be Anitra Thorleg. Thank you. Go ahead, Claude.
Okay, I was only going to ask one of my three questions, but Jean has asked me to do all three of them. Peter, are you frozen? You look frozen at my end here, and I heard your voice.
Also fuel.
Hello?
Peter, try turning off your video. Oh, gosh.
Okay, he probably has to reboot and come back. But
I think stop recording.
Well, we could do that. I'll put it on pause.
Thank you, Peter. It was a very interesting presentation, a lot of detail, a lot to go back and redigest. Gene has asked that I ask all three of my questions, so I'll try and dive right in. I was a child, and my father worked for the FAA, so I was very much aware of this. The first time that a commercial airliner was capable of landing, and I believe also taking off, that's the easy part, but landing autonomously without any pilot interference. And this has been built into the autopilots of airliners all the time. And the truth is, that passengers don't know when it's automatic and when it's the pilot that's actually flying the plane. So one would have guessed, as I did, that sooner or later, there's no need for a pilot. It's like an elevator. You just push a button, and in the sense that someone pushes a button and the plane does its thing. That did not happen. And so it's sort of a leading question, but there's a reason why that didn't happen. I don't think the public would have accepted getting on a plane where there is no pilot. So I'm going to ask you to just speculate briefly. Is this different?
Oh, well, you're right about the human emotion. I mean, even in my own case, I mean, I always think of somebody as is steering the vehicle, whatever the vehicle is. But nowadays, you can get on, and this has been around for many decades. Like the train at the airport in Dallas. It loops around the different terminals, and it's autonomous. There's no driver in it. And it just, go, and it's not an AI driven system. It's been around for a long time. So it's a mechanical, electromechanical system, and it's very reliable and it seems to work very well. Um, as we get into more and more traffic, we need to get in more complex systems than just a closed loop in an airport. Because owns its own roadbed and it doesn't go off that except for servicing, I suppose. Um, I'm not sure whether I'm answering your question.
Well, you
Claude.
sort of are. You're suggesting that people will just naturally see the convenience and they'll just ignore any concerns they have. And it is different than getting on an airplane going 500 miles an hour.
Well, it's only different if we know. In other words, like I'm sure we all get on airplanes. So we get on an airplane and we don't even give a thought whether it's autopilot or not.
Yeah.
We know that we have a pilot in case there's an emergency. That's in the back of our minds. So we have that thought, and I think we may have that for a long time, even with an autonomous system. I mean, even with a spaceship autonomous system, even like 2001, which was introducing AI to the public in effect in that movie, where the AI tool, the AI computer, was turning against the humans.
I'll move on to my second
Because the
question.
human was there, they were able to control, take over, and shut down the computer.
But almost not.
But almost not, yes.
That was the drama.
Well, that's where we're at in this kind of world we're trying to build. I mean, we think it's all positive.
So speaking of a world, that's a nice segue. Speaking of a world that we're trying to build, would autonomous vehicles decrease the per capita energy use?
I think they would, in a sense, because
I don't see it personally, but I'd like to hear.
Well, there'd be fewer vehicles. So instead of 4 vehicles in the family, there'll probably be 1, maybe 2.
And that one would be empty a lot of the time.
And it would too. I mean, all of them are empty most of the time.
There you go. So my question is very valid. I think there's a good case that it'll be more energy use per capita because all of these systems, all of these sensors are using electricity. Everything that's warm is using energy, including little boxes here and there distributed around the infrastructure, the roadway, on the cars. That's all attributed to AI, to autonomous vehicle technology.
I mean, the thermodynamics of what we're talking about here is quite complex in terms of the energy flows. But, we're transitioning our energy, and certainly electrical energy has become the bedrock for the automobile industry in terms of the new auto industry in terms of electric vehicles. And the computer and all the software that can come with that is providing us with an ability to create an environment in a roadbed situation where we are increasing the safety, both of the road and the people in vehicles on the road. And we're providing a range of new kinds of services that are, digital type, not new in the sense of radical, like let's have a drive-in theater. That was radical to start with, but it was sort of was a department store. That was radical too.
My last question is actually a technical one, because I'm curious. I worked for a company and we did closed loop control. And so the first safety rule is you set up your limits. How does an autonomous vehicle sense the connectivity that it is required for safe operation so that it can know when to either slow down or pull off? Or are they all going to be designed so that even if there is no connectivity, it still has the visual sensing and maybe the radar around the immediate, or not the acoustic around the vehicle itself?
Well,
Close
you're
quarters.
right. You're right to ask that question because, of course, if the so-called network goes down, what happens to all these independent robots that are depending upon communicating with that network? Well, in effect, the devices will be able to basically go into remote mode, in a sense, sort of like stepping down when you use. I'm just trying to think of a home appliance, maybe an electric heater, and you don't want it as hot anymore, so you dial it down. Well, the same would, we would be able to change the settings to make things more efficient. Again, I'm sort of speculating. I'm not sure it's making any sense here.
Okay, because I know that Waymo must have a way, there must be something in the autonomous vehicle that says things are starting to get ambiguous. I'm going
Well,
to slow
signal strength,
down.
signal strength is, of course, a key measure for communication, because if the signal is below a certain threshold, it's not necessarily reliable because it could be erratic as well. So the systems have to self-correct there. I mean, as it shut down or keep sampling until some improvement is made, and have associated diagnostics that tell a human that this is what's happening.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And if
Just
I have
and
more
that's
questions, I'll.
speculative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly
that's
do.
all right. That's what you're here
Yeah.
for.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. I'll read into the record the things that David Harries has put into the record, and Anitra Thorleg is on deck after I'm finished with that. David's made a comment at the beginning. He said major economic issues of autonomous vehicles development and operations. He sees problems with that. And in particular, later on, he said that is it intended that maintenance and AI updating of AVs be it autonomous, or will there be still need for repair garages and places where people go in with their vehicles?
Well, I certainly think there'll be some repair requirements. I don't think any vehicle we make is going to be indestructible. It's just, I think it'll be far fewer, uh, corner garages like we used to have in small towns in the 50s and 60s that were like 4 service stations at every corner. So we won't have that kind of thing anymore. We've already seen a dramatic drop in the number of, small scale service companies in the auto industry. Small towns still have them, but all the big places have, large corporations that do that. So, I mean, there's a scaling effort and efficiencies, but at the same time, the kind of equipment you need to maintain and, service these kinds of vehicles is actually quite expensive as well. So it's kind of displacing the small town player in favor of a middle-sized or bigger organization.
Thank you for that. Anitra, you're on, and on deck, I have John Hollins.
Thank you for an excellent presentation. I enjoyed it very much. I'm wondering if the vehicles you discussed and the generalities all are earthbound vehicles, such as trucks and cars, or do they include aircraft, drones, other kind of airborne craft. And second, being a small pilot, I can understand that there are a lot fewer obstacles, and the paths could be more directly mediated by AI. And second of all, do you refer in your generalities about the vehicles to aquatic vehicles of various kinds? I'm a scuba diver, I'm a small boat handler, and what are the availabilities for this kind of both underwater, like submarines of various kinds, and surface aquatic vessels?
Well, that's an excellent question, and that rather diverse in its spectrum. I would suggest first underwater. The main thing about underwater communications is the radio frequencies in which you can operate. They're quite different than, say, in the air. So that has restrictions, and some of those frequencies are also military aligned, frequencies that only they can use. So there's only equipment that can listen and broadcast on those frequencies that come in such classified kind of tools. In regard to the overall, well, I'm not sure what I should say, the overall security. I'm sort of losing track of your question. Maybe you could summarize the key point again, and I'll.
Well, I'm just wondering how much what you said in general applies to vehicles operating under and on the top of
Yeah.
the water, and vehicles operating in airborne spaces.
Right. So, in the case of this site CAV project, we are dealing with drones, but these are like the drones that would be used for monitoring traffic on a highway. So it's that scale of not military, those big military drones. It's drones that would be part of a monitoring system in a traffic environment. So that's we do have connectivity there because we're working in radio frequencies that car to car to air in the case of car to drone. So we are not doing any work underwater work, and we're not doing anything in terms of let's call it high altitude aircraft or space systems. But we are it's roadbed and drones.
Because if you really wanted to get the maximum number of people from point A to point B, in many cases of coastal cities, it might be to take them across the water. Or for instance, the Brazilian city of Sao Paulo, they do a whole lot of helicopter movement of people because the surface is so congested that, and the air is so free that they move them through the air. So, there are going to be different solutions with these kind of vehicles in different parts of the world.
Yes, that's right. And if they are AI, decision making, it relates to my point I was raising earlier about ethics and integrity and how the systems know about these things in order to be, operating in the human environment that they're placed in. So like Brazil's going to have different kinds of rules than, Sweden. So yes, it's as we scale these things up, we've got some record to understand how it's gone in the past, but because this is so digital and therefore easily replicated, I mean, it still requires the vehicle. It still requires physical things, but I think there'll be far fewer physical things, as in cars, per capita, if you like, than we see today. Because we won't need our own private bubble. Well, our private bubble's on demand.
Thank you.
The issue will be with family or whoever you share the car with.
Thank you for that, Anitra.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
John
Alicia.
Hollins, you're up, and John Legg, you're on deck.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I really enjoyed that and learned a lot. I have a recent German car which doesn't have cruise control. It has distance control, but it also has lane following. I want to tell you that distance control is wonderful. It really works and it's helpful. The lane following, I don't use it. Now that if I lived somewhere other than Ontario, Ottawa, or Canada, where the paint markings on the lines are made with a kind of paint which has no volatile organic compounds in it, which are now prohibited by federal fiat, I might be okay. But can you just imagine coming down Nicholas Street, head east on the Queensway, and you've got 5 lanes and essentially no lane markings that you can see, especially if it's dark and raining. So quite frankly, I don't really want the lane following. These are the very simplest parts of the recipe that you've given us today. One other small point. In 2011, I was persuaded to buy a cabriolet. And I have to tell you, this has a straight 6 engines, so absolutely smooth, fair bit of power. It goes around corners beautifully. I actually like driving it. I don't want one of your autonomous vehicles. And so my real question is, are the governments on board? You mentioned your academic partners, you mentioned your corporate partners. Is the government of Ontario or any other government involved in your work and learning what's coming?
Well, that's a good. I like that question because that's rarely asked. The government is not involved in defining any of the work. That's totally up to the academic team as to what we want to achieve. We had to make a proposal, and as I said earlier, it took several months to put together. So it's a rather complex proposal, as in lots of detail, a lot of planning to go into it. I mean, we planned work for 55 graduate students. That's theses that are going to take several years to do. So, I mean, there's a lot of effort goes into the planning of these things, and then hopefully you win. And so we won, and now it's a multi-million-dollar project, and now we're, compartmentalizing the different pieces to the different academics and the different postdocs that will handle research teams under the managing academic. And my role is to be the overall project executive director, sort of keep all these different threads and things moving as marionettes.
So governments will be late to the party.
So the government is certainly watching these things in the sense of its laboratory, transportation labs, for example, Department of Transport. They have people as well, National Research Council, as examples where they are, involved in not making the rules yet because we're still not there yet, but in considering what kind of rules we need for autonomous vehicles. I mean, I do remember I did talk to a fellow about 3 years ago who was working for ISED, and he was working in the area of, he was a legal guy, and he was working in the area of what kinds of rules we need for autonomous vehicles when they hit somebody. So, I mean, we don't have the answers to that yet. They do vary, of course, by jurisdiction. And it's interesting, as I pointed out, that the autonomous vehicle approvals are tending to be done at the municipal level, not at a state or provincial level, or not at the national level, at a municipal level. And that, of course, makes sense because that's the community where these cars are going to be operating. I don't know if that help answer your question.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And John Hollins, you will be our last questioner, and we can wind things up after that. Go ahead, John. You
mean John Legg?
Yes, sorry, John Lake. I said the wrong John. Sorry, John.
Yes.
Okay,
You're on.
too many Johns around here. Yeah, except when you need one. But anyway, sorry about that. Peter,
I like that.
this is it's a question which leads you into speculation, because I don't know just what experience you've had of this, but obviously there's something that is driving the technical knowledge to different jurisdictions for in autonomous vehicles. And so my question is finances, future control of markets? What are the factors that are driving the spread of technical knowledge? It just seems to me that if you look at the world, the differences in technical ability seems to be so large that they're daunting. So you just can't. If you're a company, you can't afford to be pushing for markets where there's just not enough financial background to pick up people on these things. Can you get into that area in a sort of speculative way? Because I don't understand how what it is that's driving the spread of technical knowledge in autonomous vehicles.
Well, primarily, the primary driver is curiosity of a variety of people. Typically people who are thinking about trying to solve a problem. So, I mean, they're very specific. They tend to be in certain sort of stations in life. So academics, researchers in laboratories of various sorts, public and private. So curiosity, you get an interest. And of course, because of the way we publish discovery, of course, as you know, the scientific method is designed such that you publish when you think you can't prove you're wrong, and you hope somebody else can. And that's why you publish. So it's not to prove you're right. It's to hopefully find somebody that can prove you're wrong. Well, Einstein's one of those who's managed to survive for quite a while without being proven wrong. But he's very exceptional in that regard. So, I don't know, John, in terms of, the future here is still kind of foggy. And I'm not sure how it's going to evolve. I mean, there's, many different, even in my own experience, which covers many different fields, from soft things to very hard things in a science sense. I really don't know. I think the driver is this curiosity, okay, that's created sort of the mathematics, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. Of course, the tools, the AI tools have come into play. These are essential as well. So they're completely independent of the autonomous vehicle business. AI tools are getting developed. Now they're being applied, sort of like you go from a hand drill to an electric drill. You've got a new powerful tool. So then there's those who are curious about, wanting to make money. So those are investors or people who, private individuals who have got a good income and want to then invest some of their spare cash. So they see something, oh, there's this new thing called autonomous vehicles. Maybe I should invest in something in that. Because already governments are putting money into it in research. That's how a university gets funded. And companies in their foresight are thinking about the future, and they're putting money and resources into it, people, in other words. So that's already happening. That's what this talk today is kind of a little different than many of our CACOR talks, because I'm not just talking about a subject area, but I'm actually talking about a project that's evolving within that subject area as we speak. And it's about the future, as a project about the future. And we still don't know where the end point is. We know what we've planned, but we don't know whether we're going to get there. I mean, we have we've done risk assessment, all that kind of stuff, but it's reasonable to assume we'll get to an endpoint. Like the last project I did at the university was a similar. It was a 4-year project, but we got a request at the end to extend it for another year because the funders were so interested in the project. So this might go for another year as well. I don't know, but it's planned for a 4-year initiative.
Well, I not only do I want to thank you, I'd like to congratulate you for having ended up in such a fascinating area, because the curiosity answer, I think, is the most fabulous answer possible, because I have a feeling that's what drives a lot of research. But
Yeah.
you can't sort of say that, but it's there.
Oh, absolutely, that's there.
So thank you very much. It's a fascinating area you're in.
Thank you, John. Over to you, Jean.
Yes, thank you very much, Peter. This has been a very, very interesting afternoon and discussion about something that is on top of mind for a lot of people. And I myself know so little about it that I'm very glad to hear somebody is thinking about some of the issues that I've never even considered. So thank you very much for that. And with that, I will turn this over to our president, Andrew Welsh, to give you a thank you on behalf of CACOR. Andrew.
Thank you.
Chair, actually, but that's fine. I'll go with Mr. President for now. And that's a position that is only 48 hours old or so. We had a CACOR AGM on Monday. And so, yes, it is my honor and treat to thank a bunch of people right off the bat. Art Hunter, who puts all of these things together with such diligence and consistency, and the sponsor, Jean, who arranged for Dr. MacKinnon to join us today. But of course, the biggest thanks go to Dr. MacKinnon for sharing your time and expertise with a small, but I think enthusiastic crowd. And of course, the crowd will grow as this goes out on YouTube. What is most exciting for me, perhaps, as the new chair to this position, is that it shows to me that you've got this 4-year project on the go. CACOR is still in the game. This is not just a bunch of retired people who have fired off their best shots and are now musing in armchairs. These are people that are still very much on the leading edge of what is happening in Canada and around the world, and that gets me excited. I did want to share one little thing that was added from the AGM to the people that are out there that may not have heard this, is that we are expanding our membership to include a new category of memberships, associates that don't have the same expectations as the regular CACOR members. They aren't voting members. They're just plugged in such a way that they will be on our membership database. They will be interacting in online forums, but at a vastly reduced cost. So if you're watching this on YouTube, head on over to the CACOR website, which is canadiancore.com, and check out that new level of membership. It may be just something that is a perfect fit for you. No application necessary, no need to go through the usual process of being approved. We're going to welcome you on board. Thank you again, Dr. MacKinnon, and look forward to hearing from more of you in the future. Bye for now.
Thank you very much.